Welcome to the Word of Mouth Podcast, a series of honest, inspiring conversations with creatives from all walks of life, some in our industry, others far outside it. What connects them all? Passion, persistence, and the courage to keep creating. So listen in and get inspired. Look up our guest, and if you find yourself nodding along, feeling seen, or more hopeful, hit subscribe. Join our journey, and let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep spreading these stories the way they were meant to be shared, by word of mouth. Welcome back to the Word of Mouth Podcast. We want to use summer when a lot of people are on vacation and they're out of town and they're spending time with their family. It makes it a challenge to fill an appearance schedule right now. But it does allow us to turn inward and look at some of the amazing people that we work with and have these more internally driven conversations. And I feel like one of the conversations that we do need to put a spotlight on, there is a guy behind the scenes on every single episode that's produced in the Word of Mouth podcast, and we very rarely ever hear from him, and I feel like his perspective is a very unique one, and working with him on a daily basis, I'm able to hear some of his experiences and some of his stories. But we want to take a minute to kind of get him in front of the camera this week and sit down with Logan Floyd, our sound engineer, one of our video editors, one of our cinematographers, and the producer of this podcast. So, all of the audio, all of the visuals, all the supporting visuals that people see in our videos, those beautiful videos that are coming out. I would like to kind of turn it over and have you introduce yourself, just briefly to, the people that are going to be watching this and kind of give them an idea of who you are and how you came to do what you do right now.
Yeah. Well, so you said it yourself. I mean, my name's Logan. I kind of fell into this position. Really by Johnny's grace more than anything. I mean, quite literally fell into it. I started here as a grip.
Okay.
Which for the people
I was going to say, people may not be familiar with that.
that don't know what that means, that just basically means that I was in charge of, putting up the lights for photography, moving the furniture, the incredibly heavy furniture. I'm not the strongest guy, but we got some strong guys, but I'm not one of them.
Some of that furniture gets ridiculous.
But that's kind of how I started. And and then one day I was working with our videographer, Daniel, and he looked at me and he was just like, "Hey, would you be interested in, running a microphone for us, like a boom pole for us?" And I was like, that's what I wanted to do, like, before all of this, like, but I couldn't afford to go to school for that kind of thing. For any sort of sound, anything, it's an expensive world in my opinion. But
now we see a lot with a lot of people in our industry that a lot of people forego that traditional route of school and education.
Yeah.
Do you feel like on-the-job education has been valuable to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
big time. And I'm coming to find out more and more and more that there's a lot of people in this space that don't have a college background.
Right.
They have mentored backgrounds.
Yeah.
And then the people who don't have a mentored background, they just grinded it out.
Right.
They grinded out those really bad days, and they grinded out and they've come, which has turned into the really good days.
Right.
And now looking, there's some
Not
people
by
that are
luck,
just,
right?
yeah,
It's
not by luck,
perseverance.
not by any means.
Yeah.
But primarily, what I do is I run our boom pole, and that will also include things like living people up and et cetera, et cetera. But now I've come to run this podcast, which is awesome. And I would love to run other people's podcasts too. We've already talked about that a little bit, but video editing. Yeah. Learning to video edit.
And you have a background in technology. Like, you are a very technical guy.
I do, yeah. So I build computers. That's just like something I've done since I was like 16.
Yeah.
I play a lot of video games.
So this is sort of a creative evolution of sort of where your focus has been, like when it gets into, especially the sound, engineering. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how important the sound design is to any video, no matter how beautiful it looks in front. Stripping the sound off of that or not giving the care and consideration to the sound design of it can really make an amazing video come out more base level, more mid.
Yeah. Yeah, think about the last video you've watched or the last movie you've watched that has no sound in it.
Yeah. It doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
And it's
it
lot more...
probably existed in the 40s,
Right.
30s,
Yeah, 20s,
20s.
yeah. And it's a lot more nuanced than people understand. I'm always amazed when I see you and Daniel and Claire editing
Mhm.
videos and putting in small sounds like a lawnmower going in the background because you
Yeah,
don't your mind does not consciously acknowledge, oh, that lawnmower is put in there in post, but it does help kind of flesh out the story. You want to hear birds chirping. Maybe that didn't happen on the day of, production, but we could put those in post and it really adds quite a bit of value, quite a bit of experience, to the overall composition of the video. I
yeah,
mean, I think that's absolutely
for
incredible.
sure. Yeah.
So as you've kind of started this journey and you're kind of evolving your approach to things, what gets you excited? Like, when you are part of the production planning, whether it's a video or a podcast episode, what kind of gets you thinking, after hours, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to this.
I think a lot about I think a lot about the I sit back and I while I'm laying in bed a lot of the time, I sit back and I'm like, that was the freaking coolest thing I think that I've ever done and gotten paid to do. If that makes sense. Like a really good example, and I know this is something that I'll probably touch on a little bit more later in one of the questions, but there's been some moments where I've been working like right alongside Daniel, and um, we've been in some intense moments, and I I'm right there up and behind him with that boom pole, and I sit there in the moment, and I'm like, this is insane that I'm doing this right now.
Yeah.
Like those are the moments that I think about, and I'm like, this is wild. I think one of the bigger ones is probably when, and this was very early on, and a lot of people will see this and know what we're talking about. Hopefully, as they've seen it too, is our Rockingham County commercial that we
Yes,
did, and that's still one of the cooler things that we
it
did, in
is.
my opinion.
It is.
And what a lot of people don't know is some of the sound for that. I was laying in the floor of the boat.
Yeah.
We were at Blues Lake, and I guess that's Madison,
Yep.
or it's not quite Madison, but I'm not sure exactly where it is. But it's and there's some funny pictures of me laying in that boat too,
Right.
but having to get sound while I'm laying there, hiding from the camera at the same time because the camera's shooting towards the front of the boat where I'm
Yep.
laying. That was intense. I mean,
Oh yeah.
that was the very first moment of holy crap, what
We
am I doing
find
right now?
places we find places to fold sound people in and camera people,
Yeah.
that same shoot. I think we had Daniel on a wakeboard at one
Yeah.
point or
Oh,
getting
oh, he was
splashed intentionally
yeah.
by the wakeboards.
He was floating in the water with our
Yes.
expensive camera housed in a waterproof
Yep.
case, and holy moly, talk about sketchy
Oh,
moments.
absolutely. Yeah. It all comes together though. Like
It does. It
it
does.
is interesting to me when you break down what we do. And I mean, honestly, I think to a person here in Johnny's studio, I think that we are very fortunate, to do what we do. I think that, laying awake at night or, sitting at your desk and looking back over some of those projects that we've done, you do have sort of this surreal moment of, and I get paid for this. Like, this is my job. You couldn't write a better job description, for what we do. And I think it's a credit to Johnny that, he allows us to come in untrained, from all different backgrounds and walks of life. And he teaches a skill set and then he allows us to kind of hone where that skill set goes. And I
Mhm.
think that's very um, unconventional,
Yeah.
in business as a whole. But I think that it does allow the creative to really come out,
Yeah.
like we are constantly pushing each other from a creative standpoint.
Yeah.
And if it means folding up our sound guy in the bottom of a boat, yeah, that's, that's what we do to get the shot.
And I think what's really important about what he does is he lets us experiment.
Yes.
And because if he was somebody that had a 100% formula and did not allow us to veer from that when we felt like we needed to,
Right.
I don't think we wouldn't have gotten a cool shots in that Rogo commercial because
No.
we never would have put our camera in the water in a
No. Nope.
waterproof case. I mean, it wouldn't have happened.
It would have been
It,
shot from
it
the shore,
yeah,
boring,
or another boat or
done.
something like that.
Yeah.
It just would
Yep.
not have been as cool, not nearly. And we hired an FPV drone guy to
Yeah.
come out for that. I mean,
Yeah. It is kind of, we get to see these projects unfold from a much different point of view than the viewer. What we see versus what you
yeah,
see is quite different.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about, kind of going back in time and, sort of seeing the evolution of not just where the studio's been, but where you have gone, from, coming in as a grip and then learning more and then getting involved more and, putting yourself in there. When we approached you to run the podcast, to produce this podcast, you took to that so immediate. You were just like, yeah, I think this is a good idea. I think this is, this is how we do it. We've gone through many different set evolutions, which again, viewers don't, maybe they see it if they watch these back to back, but we have evolved our podcast production.
Hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you have evolved your process, both behind the camera and the edit?
Yeah.
Since we started, this is, I think, episode 13,
Yeah.
probably, that we're in now.
Yeah.
So where have you seen that evolution kind of start, and where is it now?
When I started, and honestly, it really started right before the podcast, realistically, because video editing and video editing a podcast, it's the same thing. It's just one's a little bit longer. This is significantly longer than if we were to do our videos, but it's easier to edit something like this because I'm not doing crazy color grading. I'm not doing, there's not a lot of steps. It's just cut, cut, cut,
Yeah.
cut, cut.
Yep.
And so that side of it is a lot easier. But when I started this, it it was chaos. I'm not gonna lie. And I think I started with we did a shoot with it was a pink ribbon shoot with
Mhm.
who's that with Atrium.
Yeah. Yep.
And awesome. But I wasn't there to record it. I was just editing the video. So I have to imagine what they want by looking at the footage and going, okay, this piece goes here, this piece goes here, this piece goes here. Now it's a little different. Especially if I'm there on set and then I come to edit it afterwards. I can imagine it in my head while we're there. You know what I mean? Like that was not a thing the last year. It wasn't. But now, I and Daniel does the same thing. I mean, we're sitting there and we're like, oh, like I'll even whisper to him like, oh, dude, I can see this scene right
Yeah.
now, and da 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 da. Like,
So when you first came to us and you were working in more of a grip capacity, you and I had a conversation. I think we were on a photo set, and you said I'm very technical, but I'm not very creative. I
Mhm.
wouldn't define myself as very
Yeah.
creative. But it
It's definitely
sounds like
different now.
part of your part of
Definitely
your
different now.
evolution.
Yeah.
I feel like,
Yeah.
are you tapping into creativity? Are you
Mhm.
seeing things that other people have produced and seeing it not from a consumer point of view, but instead you're kind of able to step back and say, from a creator,
Mhm.
I think I know what went into this.
Yeah.
I would like to see all of this footage. So are you seeing your own creative view, kind of shift and fine tune?
100%. Yeah.
That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that the the difference between what I had said then and how I feel now, I think that part of that is still true. I don't think that I could write a story. I'm not good on a pen and paper. I'm not. I have the worst handwriting ever. It's so bad that sometimes I can't even read it. Like that's ridiculous. And to be honest, I'm not that great with words on a paper. I feel like I'm pretty decent with words coming out
Right.
of my mouth,
Spoken. Yeah.
but not to write a story in my
Right.
in my personal opinion. But if I was to if that story was handed to me and put onto a computer, oh yeah, I do feel like I could make something out
Yeah.
of it. It's totally different. Although back then, I didn't think that was true, but now I
Right.
think that that's true, 100%. I
It's
really
it's
do.
identifying your strengths.
Mhm.
It's catering to your strengths while saying, I can appreciate a well-written story, though maybe I can't produce it, but I can appreciate it. And I could certainly bring it to life, and that's part of what we do as storytellers. There's a lot of people that they may not be the most well-written, but they're very eloquent. When they speak, they have very good vocabulary, very good use of vocabulary, and they do create and tell, compelling stories spoken. So as we, tune more back towards where we are from a podcast standpoint, and we're talking about these different stories, we've been very privileged, very, it has been a humbling experience to invite someone in and then have them say yes. And then that's when you have this sort of, oh my God, I can't let this down. Like, this is an important person. They've got a very important story to tell.
Yeah.
We need to do, our utmost to convey the story. Is there one that stands out, an episode that we recorded that kind of stays with you and you're like,
Mhm.
that was where this needs to be?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that there's two.
Okay.
Um, they were every one of them. I have sat on that chair and have thought this is great. Like all of them. You know, some a little bit more than others, but the margin's not big because I think that a lot of people that sit in these chairs are very, very, very talented people.
Oh, they are.
I mean, if you look at who we've got on here, we've got people like Jeremy Kamiya came on here and oh my goodness, that guy
Yeah,
like he makes some cool stuff.
he
Like he
does.
makes some cool stuff.
Absolutely.
Jason Phillips came on here,
Very good
and
conversation.
he's one of the two in my opinion that have stuck with me the most because he is he's incredibly interesting to speak
Oh,
to.
he is
I mean,
very.
he is so interesting to speak to.
You could
And
talk to him for hours.
really, and like
Absolutely.
he came in here in before the podcast, and that's all I wanted to do was just talk to him for the next like hour. You know, it was crazy. But I think that by far the number one, and this is probably a little more on the surprising side, is the one that stuck with me the most is probably Courtney Lowe, because she came in here and you know, you told me what she did beforehand, and you know, I was expecting it to be just, you know, you talk about the theater and et cetera. But like, it was very interesting to hear about her kids that now do it, to hear about, well, you know, her kids who did it, and to hear about her experience through it, and to just and then after the podcast for me to tell her like, you know, I did theater when I was a little kid too. And like, and it was because my mom pushed me a little bit to do it too. You know, she didn't force it on me by any means, but she pushed me a little bit. And like, that's a core memory now. Like that is
Absolutely.
a seriously
And I
core
think when
memory.
we were recording that, you were actually saying that like you had forgotten a large portion of that. And during the conversation, you were reminded of these magical moments from your own childhood,
Yep.
you know, and that's, I think that most of our listeners, I hope that most of our listeners do have those moments of true connection, you know, to the conversations that we have. Like you mentioned before, they're all inspiring to
Mhm.
us. You know, that's why we invite them on. You know, we do research into our guests. We want to make sure that we're having an organic conversation, a conversation that our guest is comfortable having. You know,
Yeah.
not an interview. You know, a casual, long form conversation to get into their head a little bit and see how they do what they do. And I agree. I think that Courtney was surprising. I had spoken to Courtney once before, and then market hit, and you know we were just trying so hard to make those dates and times work. And when she came in, I think the thing that put me at such ease was she started the conversation by singing.
Yeah, she
You know,
sung. I
she
know that
sung.
was
Nobody was
right when
expecting
she did
that.
that. I sitting in that chair, and I immediately I was like, oh, this is about to be a good one.
I smiled in spite of myself. I thought I had everything together, and then she just hits these
I
beautiful notes, and I
know.
was like,
And she
"Oh,
was
this is gonna be
great. Her
cool!"
voice was
Like,
great. I sat there and I was like, "What?
yeah,
That's
that was a good
awesome.
conversation.
That's so awesome."
Was has there been a time where a guest that we've had on has changed your mind about something or brought up something you thought, I never really thought about that, but I think it's a consideration going forward?
Definitely Waldecker.
Waldecker.
When Ken Waldecker came on, um, I did not expect to be as like locked in as I thought I would be to his because like just learning about the process of what he's gone through for that is like that's different. Like I thought like if you would ask me right before that, like what's the process of making a children's book? I mean, I would have just told you just write it up and you get somebody to draw it. Like that's that. I would have thought that's it, but no, he's gone through like hoops for
Oh,
that, which
absolutely.
is awesome. Like that's so
And
cool.
he's doing 4 full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
He's writing, he's editing, he's publishing.
Yep.
He's got a full-time job on top of that. And he's a dad.
Yep.
Like the reason he's inspired to create these stories is because of the imagination of his
Yep.
daughter,
Yeah, and
So
it's about his daughter. Like that's
right. It
cool,
is
dude.
cool.
That's
And
so
it's giving
cool.
a legacy to her childhood that
Mm-hmm.
she may not even fully appreciate yet.
Yep.
But us as adults, we're looking in and saying, I think it was Picasso that said the hardest thing in the world is to draw like a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's full imagination. There's no constraint. You're not taught to stay within certain lines. And so when you're telling stories to your daughter and you're trying to visualize how these come out and you're putting her to bed, you're doing a parent's job. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I see this written out. I see how Ella's going to chase this character to this, conclusion and where the moral of the story is, and trying to write something that is engaging to little kids, readable, which
Yep.
is not easy. You can't use big words, but you don't want to play down the intelligence of the child. I mean, there is a balance. There's an art form. I think more and more as we follow Ken and his evolution in the Princess Ella series, I'm excited to see how far that goes because I mean it's got,
Yeah.
because it is truly imagination based, it has got the longest road in front of it that you could ever want to have.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
that was a
Even
pretty
if,
incredible.
even when she's grown up,
Absolutely.
like I think he could still make a million
I mean,
books off that.
how easy would it be as she grows up? You can almost guarantee she becomes a storyteller herself.
Yeah.
You know, so Princess Ella has a daughter at some
Hmm.
point or a son, and you know now she's continuing this generational storytelling. I mean, it's neat to see it happen because it's not somebody who you learn about on the book stands. You're learning about them because they're local to us. You
Yeah.
know, he is a local author. You know, he is sitting down, doing his day job, and you know, making notes while he's 9 to 5 about what he's going to write about when he gets home.
Yeah.
You know, what he's going to tell his daughter. Like that is the root of the conversation that we try to get to with this podcast. Is tell us what inspires you, whether it's your daughter, whether it's money, whether it's I feel like I can do something and see things in a way that nobody else does.
Yeah.
And you're true to yourself, and it's not easy.
Hmm.
There's sleepless nights. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. Every guest that we've spoken to has alluded or come right out and said, I fight with imposter syndrome myself. I feel like everybody else is doing something that I cannot
Yeah.
possibly, create.
You know what's something I have heard say through many different mouths while I've been listening to this is that um, every time someone comes on and they own their business or they are the leader of their business and they're creative, they hate the business side of the
Oh,
creative side. And it's
absolutely.
so funny because it's true.
It's
People
a necessary
people who are
evil.
creative are not as great on the business side.
Nope.
It's just how it is.
Yep.
I've come to learn that.
Yep.
I've definitely come to learn
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
I've heard that probably 8 times.
It feels, yeah, and it's a necessary evil. I mean,
Yeah.
Johnny's a perfect example. Like he has to do invoicing. It's not his favorite part of the job. He has to do, business and strategy planning sessions. But at the end of the day, he just wants to create.
Yeah.
He wants to do what he's called to do. But you have to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So I think there's a push and pull. So, talking about like your role as a producer, both in the podcast, but also as we're producing videos and films, has there been an experience that has shaped you in maybe an unexpected way, or something that like you really came away from, again, either video or podcast, with a certain experience or a certain level of, this is why I do this?
Yeah. Uh, Not as much with the podcast because, to be honest, it is not a hard thing to do.
Right.
It doesn't keep me up at night.
Right.
In my opinion, it doesn't keep me up at night. Like producing it doesn't keep me up at night. But sometimes editing will, just because with these, sometimes I'm editing it in there for way longer than I thought that I'd be, because like there's a time where you just hit a wall and you're cutting, and you have to stop. You have to pause. But for as far as like a why I do this, I think the biggest thing is, and I alluded to it towards the beginning of this, but there was on the video side, there was a time where 3 months ago, probably, me, Daniel, Claire, and a couple other people who we had hired in, were doing a video for HPXD for Jane, who was on I think episode
Episode
2.
2. Yeah.
We were doing a video for her, and this video is not out yet. It's still in the works. We're
Right.
still getting a lot of stuff together
It's
for
a
that.
large
but
project.
very large
Yeah.
project. And we were at this factory building. I cannot remember who we were there or what the factory building was. I was kind of locked into what we were doing at the moment. I didn't the small details were gone, but we had this insane shot where we were following Jane and who she was with, who was I guess a manager, owner, possibly, of the company, and we were walking backwards while on both sides of us there were people who were working with fabric and leather and et cetera, et cetera. But they had pieces of it all over the place, and they were going fast. They were moving, they were running in between us, and like It was intense. It was so intense, and I thought about that for, like, weeks because in the moment, like, here I am just up above Daniel's head, like, right up in behind him. I actually had Chase on my left, who is someone who also works with us here and there. He was on our left. He was actually holding me and Daniel back from bumping into to any of the machines that they had there. So he was holding up against us on our left, shimmying because he actually had the tightest spot because it was in between us and the machines. But he was just making sure we didn't hit, and I'm having to take the slowest possible steps as I'm walking back with this boom mic up over his head, and Daniel's taking extremely um, focused videos. I mean, like we did this probably 6, 7 times, and we flipped sides, and then we just did it from behind them, which was a lot easier because you're not walking backwards, and you're not walking backwards with I don't know, $7,000 of camera and equipment gear. That is definitely one of those moments. Like, like everybody will probably talk about like, oh, well, what about on the boat, or like, what about when we were with Johnny, and he was in his fishing gear and et cetera, and it was gorgeous out there at the beginning of the Roco video. A lot of people would look to that and go as like that's probably the most memorable, but for whatever reason, this moment with Daniel at the HBXD thing, man, it was
I
it
think
was
that's awesome.
intense. It was really intense, and I really was just like, I want to do this for the rest of my
Yeah,
life. Like, this is cool.
that is cool. No, I like that. So talking about like your process and your evolution as a producer, and coming into some of the larger projects, those projects that have like the intense moments or the story driven projects. How do you see yourself, kind of continuing your evolution? Like, what do you think separates a good producer or a good editor from a great one? Like where do we fall on those sides?
I think it's somebody who can make a story out of dirt.
Fragments. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
because there are some moments where we are filming and I'm seeing what Daniel is making, and I don't see the vision. I don't. Like there's moments where I'm like, how are you gonna get anything out of this? And then it gets brought to uh, to the computer, and I'm just like, dude, that's sick. I mean, that is so cool. And there hasn't been too many of those moments for me personally because I'm not I don't hold the camera nearly as often as Daniel and Claire do, not nearly. Um, but I started getting a little bit of that when we were shooting the second time for Pink Ribbon, and which was sorry, my second time. I think it was our third time technically, but um, and I was behind the camera. Daniel had other things he had to do, and I had to run camera. And I was like, it was stressful. I
how
won't, I
much
won't
of it
lie.
is I don't want to mess this up versus I'm
You,
going to do
you
an
know,
amazing job?
you know what's funny? Watching Daniel so much
Hmm.
do it, I didn't feel like I was gonna mess it up by
Okay.
any means. I think the worst I could do for as far as messing it up goes is just having camera settings wrong, which I've run into that, and it's fixable in post. Like most things are fixable in post. There are some times where you screw up hard enough, it's not fixable in post. But I know those, like I know those problems just fine. But maybe not all of them. But there's definitely there's still a lot for me to learn. Don't get me wrong, but I felt confident that I could do that if that made sense. But I mean, I also had Claire was there too. Yeah, and I knew that like if all mine were terrible, Claire was gonna get a good one. So
You've
I,
got a
I wasn't
safety
too
net.
stressed. I wasn't too stressed. Um,
So just
but
last week you stepped behind the camera.
yeah,
Like you came in. We had two of our videographers out, and you stepped up, and you were able to essentially pinch hit
yeah,
and really close out a project. And I was able to work with you on that some, but you are definitely getting more comfortable. Not just in the camera settings, but in camera movements. And I think that does come from repetition. And watching Daniel and being an active part. You know, on the camera crew.
yeah, yeah. I definitely have both of them to thank for that because I wouldn't know anything about this.
No.
I wouldn't know
Well, it all
anything about
starts,
this.
yeah, it all starts
Yeah,
somewhere. It
yeah,
has to.
and their knowledge is like on the video side is like beyond me. But I'm closing that gap.
Sure.
I'm trying to like learning about what they do helps with what I do at the same time. So it's like I need to learn it no matter what because like knowing Daniel's next camera angle, that's how I keep my boom pole out of the shot. Like it's all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of little things that
It's a
like,
dance,
and I like being their tech guy. There's a lot of moments where like, there's a question Daniel will ask me, and I'll think to myself, I'll be like, huh, I don't know the answer to that, but I know how to find out real quick, and I'm pretty good at that. So like they'll turn around in their seats and they'll just ask me like things that like, or well, it was specifically Daniel asked me. He'll be like, "How do you do this?" And then I just know, or like it's either I know or I don't, and then if I don't, I can get an answer real fast.
Yeah,
I
it's
know how to get
finding
an
it out.
answer really
Yep.
really quick.
Yep.
Which I like being that guy. I like being the tech guy. I like being the guy with the answers to the weird tech
Yeah.
problems that like
Well, you need
no
that.
one's gonna know.
Yep.
But I enjoy that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
my thing. Like I build computers, so like
It's
I have
solving
to
a
have that.
puzzle,
Yeah,
right?
I
Yeah.
have to have
It's
that kind of knowledge.
very problem
Yes.
oriented,
Yes.
problem and solution
Yeah.
oriented. So what dreams, like what would be a dream project for you? Like, what do you want to see, our studio produce that you think, eventually or one day or
Yeah.
all of these problems that we're solving on a daily basis is going to lead us to this?
Yeah.
Like, where is that for you?
I think anything narrative.
Narrative. Okay.
I think that we could do something narrative very well.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And we don't, a lot of people will say, oh, some of the stuff we have done is narrative. I think that, mm, you know, while there is some narrative things in a lot of what we've done, I don't think anything we've done is like truly like, um, you know, scene one, take one, like someone's completely acting on screen and talking and acting on screen because we haven't done a lot of that yet, and I would like to do a lot of that because that while not a lot of people need that, I think we can do that. If that makes sense. Even if it's something that we do on our own time, I think we can do it. I think we can do it really well. We have the gear, we have the people. We just need the actors. We need the people who are just going to come out and just be like, I'd love to act in your
Yeah.
little narrative. Like that'd be
Well,
cool.
and
I mean,
building the
something to
community
put in
with
a like
High
a
Point.
exactly. So something that we can put into like a show for like to get recognition. Like that would be really really cool because that could be something you can bounce off of. We kind of went through some of this where we're talking about like putting some of the things we've already done and into awards ceremonies, et cetera, et cetera. But like I would love to see if we could do something that would really be narrative based that could go into a film festival or
Oh,
et
yeah.
cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean?
I think that'd be incredible.
Oh my gosh, that would
Yeah.
be so much fun.
So that's
I have friends who do it,
Dream.
and like, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Like I have friends who do that kind of stuff. The majority of them do it for free. It's their own time kind of thing because it is quite rare to in this area run into like a group of people who need help on a narrative and will pay you for it.
Right.
So, but like to just have your name on something like that.
Oh, I think
Oh,
that would be incredible.
man,
Yeah.
that would be
Yep.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to pursue like accolades.
Yeah.
So, I guess, to kind of close out the conversation that we're having, because we do want to do an official call to action for other people to listen to this and the other episodes we have out and to reach out to us. We love having this conversation. We want to keep it going. What would you say from where you are to the person that is aspiring? Like someone, like we talked about at the top of the episode. This was not your direction, in school. Like this was not, but you had a yearning to learn more, and one, situation, one introduction led to another. And so to the person who's out there thinking, I think there's something else out there for me, what advice would you give them?
If you want it, try to get into it where it's not going to, and it's going to sound weird, try to get into it where it's not going to financially cripple you, but you can dip your toes into it. Okay. So if it's something like this, get with somebody, try to find somebody who is possibly close to you. If not, maybe find out through groups on social media sites, et cetera, like get with people and try to just get on set. Just as an example for this, for what we do, get on set. But if it's not set related, if it's not video related or photo related, then just dip your toes into what you want to do. If you're an interior designer, maybe just do something for a friend, and dip your toes into it. See if it's something that you like. Um, then maybe pursue schooling. Then, um, unless you want to become self-taught, it's a harder avenue to go. Um, but if you have people who are there to support you to do it, just do it. Like, just do it.
Yep.
Just try it.
Okay.
Because dipping your toes into it, you're gonna find what you like and you don't like pretty fast.
And we've encountered that on both sides. We've pulled people in to work with us, and very quickly, they realize, and they're honest and open with us, and they say, "This is not it. This is not for me. I'm going to go back and do what I was doing before."
Yeah.
And then the other people, I think it does light a fire in them,
Yeah.
and I think that sometimes that fire's been smoldering for months or years, and then just one conversation, one jump, but you have to take that first step.
Yeah.
You cannot constantly wait for. In my own experience, I have found that if you're constantly waiting for everything to align perfectly to allow you to make that decision, you will wait your entire life. You will never be in a position where you say, okay, now all of the stars, everything is lined up exactly the way it needs to be, and the universe is beckoning me in. You have to, like you were talking about, you have to start somewhere. You have to have a conversation, reach out. Email somebody.
Yeah. I think a big thing is, and a lot of people can't control this, but if you're wanting to get into a creative space, being around creative people is a game changer. I mean, look at where I am now. I did not have creative peoples around me besides maybe some people in my family, but didn't have anybody around me that wanted to do this kind of thing. But after falling into it, now, oh man, I mean, it's changed my worldview. It has changed like how I see my future career, how I see my current career. Like it's totally different. I mean, and like I said, I have family who are creative. Like I would say that my form of storytelling started probably from my dad, who like when we were younger, he would tell these crazy stories that would involve us as like these crazy characters, these wizards, these warriors, these paladins. Like he created that kind of world for us, which was really, really cool. That kind of started my nerdiness, like I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. My whole family is, so it's like that kind of started our like that started the my siblings and mine version of our storytelling, and especially my older brother now. I mean, that's all he writes stories like crazy. I mean, he's great at it, and like it's one of those things where if you surround yourself with people that are like that, then you're gonna get into some cool stuff because they're gonna open up avenues. You're gonna open up avenues, and it's gonna be cool.
Creativity always begets creativity. Like one creative act will always lead to another creative act, and the more you can surround yourself with those people that are inspiring you to push, but also encouraging you and saying, "This is." There's no failure. Earlier you mentioned that Johnny encourages us to experiment. To don't do the same thing twice. Like how to do it that time. Do something different. Let it evolve. Let it shape you as you're shaping it. It's I think it's fundamental, but I think a lot of people get lost in the minutia of life and they never allow themselves to take that moment and dream. And then execute whatever small part of dream that you have in front of you and just see where it goes, and it's not an immediate, it's not a, we liken it to harvesting crops, here in our company. There are some that come up faster and there are some that take a lot longer to nurture and grow and water and feed and care for. But eventually, that it's going to be so worth it.
Yeah.
So as we're closing this episode out, I did want to take a moment to reach out to the viewers, the listeners that are listening, and they have listened to one or two or maybe our entire library at this point. We are still a young podcast, but I do hope that our conversation is resonating, with people in every different industry, every different walk of life. When we finish episodes on the podcast, we always, kind of have that producer's conversation afterwards, and we say, "Oh my gosh, this was amazing! I really think that this is going to like reach people." And we hear back on social media from time to time that I've really liked having so and so on your podcast. That was such a good conversation. We've heard back from people in the industry, friends, family members. And we do want to take a moment to invite those that do have this story. Everybody has this story. It's just what stage they're playing on and what part of their life they're in as to what that story looks like. But everybody relates to the story of not just the struggle, but the small successes, the perceived failures, the get up and go when you've been hit, 5 different times and you come up from a different angle, a different avenue, different approach, and you try to keep figuring things out. So we did want to take a moment to sort of invite people that have that conversation. If we haven't reached out to you, reach out to us and
Yeah.
let's get you in, let's have a conversation and
We're not Evil Corp.
No, we're not.
Just reach out to us.
No,
Like
no.
we're all pretty nice people. I mean, I feel like everybody who's come on here has left here feeling like that was cool.
Yeah. And they're
I
always
think
so
every single
excited.
one.
They reach
Yeah.
out, "Oh, I can't wait to hear the episode."
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
it gives people sort of a,
And then they reach out to us again,
yeah,
like here and there for this and this and that.
to
And
follow
we
up
love
on
that.
this.
That's what
And
we
yeah,
want. That's the point of the podcast. Like,
absolutely. And it is building a network that we
Mhm.
can work and we can live in, where Ken Waldecker has the newest Ella book coming out, hitting shelves in the next week or so, following up on that, and,
Yeah.
and continuing that conversation. If it starts here, I don't want it to go into a void. This is not a one-way line of communication. This is a conversation. We're not talking at people. We want to talk to people, and we want those people to have a voice in their community, in our community, in our network, whether they're in California. They're still part of our community.
Exactly.
We truly believe at Johnny Davis that it's not competition, it's collaboration. And the more collaboration you have, the more collaborators you have in a creative revolution, like what we're walking into, what we're seeing the beginning of, the more open, consistent, creative conversations that we can have. What we were just talking about, it begets more creativity. It pushes the needle in the right direction, fractionally at times.
Yeah.
But then you look back in the rearview mirror and you say, that's what we did. That's
Exactly.
what we started. That's the conversation that we began. And this is where it goes now. This conversation never has to end.
Yeah. I think that a good thing that what this podcast has done is it has showed a lot of the people who come in here how important it is to have a video or to make a video or to have things on social media or et cetera, et cetera. And it it can change your company completely. Like it really really can. Same thing with photography, obviously. It goes for all forms of social things. Like photography for your website requirement. If you're When was the last time you went to a website where it was just white with text?
Oh, I
I, I,
absolutely.
I mean, obviously we've been to those websites. They're terrible. It's rough. That's why, like, you even go to Amazon, and their product photography, it's great. I mean, even stuff that's like shipped from overseas. Like it could be something so tiny, it's got good
It's
photos to go with
still
it.
accurately,
Like
yep.
it is really important. People need visual stimulus to go along with, and it's got to be, and it doesn't need to be cheap. Don't make cheap photography. Don't make cheap videos. It's obvious and it's painful. I'm not
It
gonna lie
is.
to you.
It is.
It's rough.
And we see it
We've
a
seen
lot.
we've seen some rough stuff.
We have seen
Yeah.
more than our fair share, and I agree with
Yeah.
you. We serve a visual community.
Yeah.
That was one of the decisions we made when we did the podcast. It was going to be a video podcast.
Yeah.
We're a visual company.
Yeah.
I want people to see not just what we're talking about, but the guests that we're talking to.
Yeah.
I want people to. There's so many times where I'll listen to a podcast myself and I'll think, I wonder what they look like.
Yeah, I wanna-
You
I
know,
wanna-
like
I wanna
yeah,
know.
like
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
is this person that's
Yeah.
on the other side? Especially if they're not a national celebrity or a big name with a big stage. So we want to reach out to the people that are operating on smaller stages. That are. You still have a story. Everybody shares that Steve Jobs story. It's just a different stage. And I think that we are earnestly looking for those conversations with people that are on those different stages that we don't even know about. So if there's someone out there that's resonating with any of this when they feel called to, I would encourage them to reach out to us. You can reach us on our website at jdavisdigital.com. You can reach out to us through social media. We're on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram. Yeah. We've got quite a presence there. Our phone number is listed everywhere, all over business cards and everything else. And
we hand those business cards out like candy.
Oh yeah, we go through a lot of business cards, and it's fun when we get to see them back. Someone will say, "Well, I got your card 2 years ago, and today's the day that I chose to reach out." I try to remember every conversation I have, and most of the time I'm good about it. Sometimes they'll catch me a couple years down the road, and I'll say, "Who did you talk to?" And they're like, "It's you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Well, let's sit down and restart every
conversation. And if somebody's mad at you for forgetting a conversation from 2 years ago,
oh my gosh,
they're a little cuckoo. That's too much.
It happens. It's that only client syndrome, but we fight that on a daily basis. So I think rounding out the conversation today, thank you so much for sitting down and joining us. I think that these conversations, while you and I work together on a daily basis, we don't get to hear the conversations that happen internally to the company. So the summer of, solidarity, I think, is happening, as we are trying to schedule people in and trying to work around vacations and trying to work around very limited time that we have to schedule conversations like this. It does allow us to peel back our retouchers up front, our editors, our producers, our stylists, the conversations with Johnny, how does he see things, from a 1,000-foot view and a 10,000-foot view? Getting people like you on here and saying, we talk about this stuff, but our viewers, our listeners, our clients, they don't see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that we get to be a part of. They see this polished version of it, the version that we want them to see. But the making of it is a totally different story.
Exactly. That's literally what I was going to say. And honestly, hopefully in the future we're going to be seeing more of some of the people that work in here on this, right in this chair. Would love to get Daniel on here. Would love to have Claire come on here. I would love to have Rick come on here. We want people from our side to come in here too.
Absolutely.
And just so that we can peel the curtains back. I mean,
that's exactly what it is.
Really important for us to show people that there's humans that work here.
We're just people.
We don't AI generate our videos. I know that the AI overlords are going to take over, but
it's going to
not yet. It's not happening right now.
It starts at the Roomba. It all starts at the Roomba. I'm convinced. Well, Logan, again, thank you so much for sitting down and joining this. This is a good conversation. Sure. I like this. I think that I don't envy you having to edit yourself, because I don't have to edit any of these, and I could not do it.
I might be editing my voice a little bit.
I was thinking, just make it really deep. How you doing?
No.
Well, thanks again, and we can go ahead and call that clear. I think that was good.